العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم أما بعد. If someone dies as a martyr, shaheed, what happens to their body? Are you allowed to wash them? Should we do the same ritual as burials? Is it possible to take them out from the grave at some point? And if so, what happened to their body in the grave? All of this can be learned from hadith. Okay, we learned that from hadith Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu wardah, Riyadh al-Salihin, Kitab al-Da'awat, the book of dua, and the marvels of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is actually a chapter or a hadith on the Wilayah of Abdullah ibn Haram radiallahu ta'ala anhu wardah, the father of Jabir ibn Abdullah. Hadith number 1507, قال جابر لما حضرت أحد دعاني أبي من الليل. He says when we went to witness the battle of Uhud, and we know what happened in the battle of Uhud, right? The Sahaba at the beginning, they were excited. They went out of Medina instead of, they wanted to go and fight, especially those who missed Badr. So they're very excited. Although the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to kind of like barricade in Medina and try to block the mushrikeen from coming in. That was his instinct, that was his desire. But since he was outvoted by the many people who said, no, we need to go out and fight them out there, so he went. They won the first part of the battle, but then they lost the other part. And as a result, 70 of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were martyred in that day. So here, Jabir radiallahu anhu, he says, قال لما حضرت أحد, when I witnessed Uhud with my father, he called me from the night. His father called him from the night. قال تعال, I want to talk to you. قال ما أراني إلا مقتولا في أول من يقتل من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, listen, I have a hunch, I have a feeling that I'm going to be among the first people to be killed on that day. I'm going to be the first, I'm on the first people. قال وإني لا أترك بعدي أعز علي منك غير نفس رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He says, and to me, you have to understand, he says that that you are the dearest to me after the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم that I'm leaving behind. Like after the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, you come next in terms of the dearest to me that I'm leaving behind. He says, قال وَإِنَّ عَلَيَّ دَيْنًا فَقْضِ, and I have a debt. Make sure that you pay off my debt. وَإِنَّ عَلَيَّ دَيْنًا فَقْضِ وَاسْتَوْصِ بِأَخَوَاتِكَ خَيْرًا, and you should take care of your sisters very well. What about his brothers, Jama'ah? Why didn't his father ask him to take care of his brothers? Anyone knows? Because he had no brothers. He was an only boy among 7 girls. So he's the only boy of 7 girls. His story is very famous, actually, later comes in the history of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he went out with the Prophet one time on one of those expeditions, so when they arrived to Medina, he came back rushing. He kind of going ahead quickly. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was marveled at his speed and his rush. He goes, Ya Jabir, what's the rush for? Why are you so hasty? He goes, Ya Rasulullah, before I left, I got married. And I just want to go back to my wife. So the Prophet ﷺ, he kind of like joking with him. He goes, did you marry someone young like yourself or someone else been married before? He goes, no, Ya Rasulullah, when my father died, he left me 7 sisters. I didn't want to bring another one so I can take care of 8. I want someone to help me out with my sisters. So he said, the Prophet ﷺ made dua for him, that may this be blessed. So the idea here is that Jabir, his father, is telling him, make sure to take good care of your sisters. And he did, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. قال فأصبحنا. So in the morning, when the battle started, فكان أول قتيل. His hunch and his feeling came true. He was among the first, if not the first person to die on the battlefield, رضي الله عنه وارضاه. قال ودفنت معه آخر في قبره. On that day, since the battlefield, of course, there were so many shuhada on that day, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he ordered that people be buried together. So every 2-3 people will be in one grave. And he would bring them together based on their, sometimes their level of hifz of the Quran. And he would ask, those huffaz, bring them together. And if someone had his brother, the mu'akha, the pact of brotherhood that the Prophet ﷺ established in Medina, you buried them together. So he's kind of like putting people together. So Jabir, he says, we had to put 2 together. With his father, someone else was buried with him. قال ثم لم تطب نفسي أن أتركه مع آخر. He says, later on, I didn't feel good about it. I just didn't want to have my father sharing the grave with somebody else. I wanted him to be by himself in his grave. Because it just kept coming at me. I just couldn't feel comfortable with that. قال فاستخرجته بعد 6 أشهر. 6 months later, he exhumed his body from the grave. Now, there's also reasoning behind it. Why? Because there's another narration that was mentioned in the story of Jabir radiallahu anh, is that there was a sail, like floods in the area. And that flood, if you guys remember the story also of Hamza radiallahu anh, the floods kind of like revealed his body radiallahu anh. So similarly, it seems to be around the same time that flood also exposed some of the grave and the site of Jabir's father as well. So Jabir kind of like took this as an opportunity. He says, you know what? So he took his father out from his grave to bury him alone. Now, here's where the wilayah of the father of Jabir comes in, Abdullah, which is basically his qualities and his status shows in this position right now. قال فاستخرجته بعد 6 أشهر. I exhumed his body after 6 months. 6 months from his grave. قال فإذا هو كيوم وضعته. And I found him as fresh on the day when I buried him 6 months ago. Like he was still there. His body complete. Everything. He says غير أذنه, except for his ear. His ear decomposed. Everything else was untouched. Subhanallah. قال فجعلته في قبر على حدة. So I buried him separately on the side alone. رضي الله تعالى عنه وأرضاه. الحديث رواه البخاري. So what do we learn from this? There are many things actually we learn from this hadith. One of the things that we learn about the Sahaba رضي الله تعالى عنهم, their extreme love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did you hear what the father of Jabir told him? What did he tell his son? He says, listen, no one is more beloved to me than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you come next. He could have told him, you know what? You were the first, and Rasulullah comes in. But no, he says, listen, I love you so much, but I still love Rasulullah more than you. Subhanallah, I mean, if you put this in also the context of our culture today, he's the only boy you have, and you have 7 girls, subhanallah. I mean, a lot of families would like to have maybe 1, 2 boys, this and that and so on. The only boy in this whole family that would carry the legacy of your bloodline and this and that and so on. So his love will be actually unparalleled. Still he said, yes, I love you, but I love Rasulullah more than you. So the love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was so great. Also, Jabir, his father, Abdullah, radiallahu anh, subhanAllah, I mean, as if his hunch and his feeling comes true. Like as if they're being inspired with that intuition that comes from their iman and from deen and from their ta'ah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah azza wa jal give them that sense of basira, intuition in their hearts. As Allah says in the Quran subhanahu wa ta'ala, قال يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تتقوا الله يجعل لكم فرقانا. O you who believe, if you have piety and righteousness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you furqan. What the furqan mean here? Furqan means criteria by which you can distinguish right from wrong, which means you have intuition. You have that insight that not anyone else can have. But how can you get that? It doesn't come really from reading books and attending seminars and halaqat. It comes from practice of taqwa, the practice of the heart. When that heart submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the actions of the body also follow as well, that's when you be rewarded with that sense of insight. And that's a testimony for Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa arda. We also learn that, subhanAllah, before anyone death comes to them, you should have wasiyah. And that's what his father did. Specifically, if you're going to be embarked on a specific mission that might be perilous. For example, you're going to Hajj, for example. Or you're going on a journey overseas, for instance. Even if it was for business, let's say. Or you're going to be going somewhere where you believe that might be a little bit maybe risky. Then in this case, you better actually do something about this. Or may Allah protect you all, someone goes into the hospital to go for surgery, for instance. You might not think it's a serious matter, but still, you should also keep in mind that you leave a wasiyah, a bequest or a reminder to what happens after your death. Now, of course, in addition to asking people to take care of your financial debts and your financial liabilities, don't forget about what, jama'ah? Taqwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you remind them about Allah azza wa jal. And that they'll hold on to the path of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We learn also from this hadith is the barakah of the shuhada. So these martyrs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put one of those miracles, is that their bodies will not be consumed by the ground or by the earth. Now, is that for everybody? Not necessarily. The ulama, they say not for everybody. Not for everybody. Not all the shuhada. That's one thing. Second, we don't know who the shaheed and who's not. We don't know who the shaheed and who's not. Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, obviously we give them that testimony, for sure. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He testified for them in the Quran. But for us, after that, we can't tell who's shaheed and who's not. So therefore we wish for them and we hope for them to be among the shuhada. But we don't really guarantee for them any karama or wilayah like what's happened to Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anhu arda. And the last one here is that, is it permissible for us to remove a body from the grave or exhume a body from the grave after it was buried for so long? The answer is, from this hadith, they say yes, it depends on the circumstances. So if it was required by law, for example, if, let's say, the circumstances required for them to move them out because of the floods or expose or maybe dispute over the land, if there was a reason, then yeah, of course, we should take care of that, and this is fine. As a matter of fact, not just that, is it permissible even to open a grave to put another body if it fits in there? That's actually what they do in Ibn al-Baqi'. That's what they do. And I remember one time, subhanAllah, it's what an interesting sight. I remember one time, because what they do, they used to rotate the Baqi' every maybe 20, 25 years. They go back again to open the graves and they bury next to them. So I remember actually one of those incidents when I see that as they about to start the burial, they were pushing whatever is left of the bones inside and put another body right in the same place over there. So again, it depends on the circumstances if it's needed or not. Other than that, it's always better to keep the person buried where they are, and it's also better for them, instead of transfer them somewhere else, to bury them right where they die. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our this shahada from Ya Rabbil Alameen, pour us the barakah of the shuhada Ya Rabbil Alameen. Wallahu alam. Any questions, Jama'ah? No. Further. Dr. Muhammad.
Now, beside the legal will that you have with
No.
Your lawyer and stuff,
Mm.
do you mean you have to have an additional verbal wasiya or will, or this is by itself is enough?
So the question is about the legal wasiya or the will that people write down, let's say in front of an attorney or notarized and so forth. Do we still need to do another wasiya that's verbal for people? Well, if you have the written will that includes all these requirements, alhamdulillah, you're good. However, it's always good to remind the people. Always good to remind the people. In addition to what is written, you remind them what needs to be taken care of as well, inshallah ta'ala. SubhanAllah, we learned that Shaykh Umar yesterday was speaking about the death of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and how Umar in the last moments, in the last even breath, he's still giving wasiyah to the ummah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So to be concerned for those loved ones, of course, definitely you should always have that already, inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu alam. Nah.
I'm asking about the ear, his ear. Not there. Is that just decomposition or is that?
So why just the ear of Abdullah? That was the only thing that was actually decomposed. Is there any specific reason for that? Allahu alam. There's some interpretations, but nothing really coming from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to say that's why it happened to him. Allahu alam. Nah. خير إن شاء الله. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.